I'm Ethan Harper, and I never thought I'd have to tell this story. The story of how Linda Voss, my new neighbor in Willow Creek, Oregon, turned a little wooden sign in front of my house into an endless war. Linda's the type who'd nitpick you over anything, but her obsession with my sign was a whole different beast. At first I thought it was an accident, but then it became a routine. Every week she'd find a way to wreck the sign I'd handmade, the one that read Harper's Hideaway. I put up with it until I got fed up, so if she wants to destroy it, now she's going to face something unbreakable. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video. Willow Creek is a small suburban town in Oregon, where cute wooden houses line tree-shaded streets, with lush green lawns and white picket fences, straight out of a movie. I moved here for a peaceful retirement, and that sign was something I made to mark my little haven. Just an oak plank, carved with Harper's Hideaway, using a knife and white paint, stuck on a small stake in front of the lawn. It wasn't perfectly straight, the lettering was a bit off, but I liked it. Then Linda Voss showed up and decided it was an eyesore she couldn't stand. My friend Jake later said her reaction to my new version was priceless. But if someone had told me back then, I'd end up in an epic feud over a sign, I'd have scoffed and called them crazy. But here I am, recounting how Linda turned an innocent object into a battlefield. If you think I'm exaggerating, it's because you haven't met the kind of person who loses sleep over a sign that isn't even theirs. It started with small things. My sign sat at the edge of my front yard, like plenty of others in the neighborhood. It wasn't much different, just a white painted wooden plank, leaning slightly because I'm no pro at staking. But for reasons only the heavens and Linda's massive ego could fathom, she decided my sign was an affront to Willow Creek's aesthetics. Linda moved into the house across from me a few months after I settled in. She had the look of someone who'd worked an office job, but retired early. Dyed blonde hair, expensive sweaters, and eyes that always seemed ready to fix the world. The first time we met, I just thought she was a bit prickly. The type who'd glance at you and smirk like you didn't belong. I didn't care. I'd met enough people in my life to know how to ignore those looks. But then my sign started having issues, and I slowly realized Linda wasn't just prickly. She was a living nightmare. One morning, I went out to grab the paper, and saw the sign leaning. Probably the wind, I told myself. Oregon's windy. It happens. I straightened it, drove the stake in deeper, and forgot about it. But then it happened again. This time, the stake was snapped in half, the wooden plank lying on the grass. I frowned, wondering if some kids were messing around, though there weren't many kids in the area. I still didn't suspect much. Maybe wind, maybe a kid running by pulling a prank. But when it kept happening, I started wondering if I was paranoid. But the third time, I couldn't ignore it. This time, the sign wasn't just leaning, it was completely broken. The oak plank I'd carefully carved now sprawled on the ground, with a messy green paint streak scrawled across it reading tasteless. I stood there, morning paper in hand, staring at the wreckage, and wondering if someone had it out for me. I rebuilt the sign more carefully this time. Deeper stake, stronger nails, but suspicion started creeping in. Linda Voss, the new neighbor with the judgy eyes and that irritating smirk, kept popping into my head. She'd walk by my house almost daily, always glancing at the sign with a look like it had personally offended her ancestors. I had no proof, so I tried to shake it off. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe it was just a stray cat or some freak gust of wind that had it out for me. But it kept happening, and I started feeling less crazy. Someone really hated my sign. I told the story to Mabel, the old lady 2 houses down, famous in the neighborhood for sitting on her porch recounting Willow Creek's old drama. Mabel sipped her tea, peered at me through her thick glasses and said, "You ought to watch that new Linda Voss woman. She once complained about my maple tree, because its leaves fell on the road and messed up her scenery." What a weirdo. I laughed, thinking Mabel was probably exaggerating like usual. But her words stuck with me. Was Linda the type to lose sleep over a tree? And if so, could my slightly crooked sign be the perfect target for her obsession? Things escalated faster than I expected. One morning I stepped outside and saw the sign wasn't just broken. It was sprayed with red paint all over, like someone had tried to turn it into a hideous abstract art piece. I stood there, hands on hips, muttering, "Okay, what the hell is going on?" I started thinking about confronting Linda, but I had no evidence, just a hunch and some sloppy paint streaks. I didn't want to be the crazy neighbor banging on her door yelling, "Do you hate my sign or what?" So I decided to do what any retired engineer would: install a security camera. I didn't get the camera just for the sign. Honest, there'd been some petty thefts in the neighborhood lately. Someone's bucket went missing, then old Ted's folding chair vanished from his porch. So I figured a camera was a good idea, and it'd catch whatever was happening to Harper's Hideaway too. I set it up on the big oak out front, aimed right at the lawn, with a view of both the sign and the walkway. I installed it, tested it, and thought, if someone messes with it again, I'll catch them red-handed this time. I didn't expect that the very first night, I'd get my answer, and it'd be crazier than I'd ever imagined. After mounting the security camera on the oak out front, I felt like an amateur detective in a cheap movie, just missing the fedora and cigar. I didn't expect much, really. I just wanted to see if my Harper's Hideaway sign was actually being targeted, or if I was overreacting to some paint streaks and broken stakes. But that very first night I turned the camera on, I got my answer, and it was wilder than anything I'd pictured. I sat in the living room, sipping cold coffee, pulling up the camera app on my phone. I rewound the footage from the night, expecting to see squirrels scampering by, or an Oregon gust tipping the sign again. But then I saw it. Around 2 a.m., a figure stepped into the frame. Linda Voss, unmistakable, wearing that garish floral robe I'd seen her in while taking out the trash, flashlight in hand, approaching my sign like she was on a covert mission. I held my breath as she raised her foot and kicked. Yes, kicked. My sign like it was her mortal enemy. The stake snapped, the plank toppled, and Linda stood there, glancing around like a thief checking for witnesses. I nearly spilled my coffee from the shock. A middle-aged woman in a floral robe, kicking my sign in the middle of the night. Can you even imagine? For a second I thought I was dreaming. But then I burst out laughing so hard my cat bolted off the couch. Linda Voss, Willow Creek's self-appointed queen of aesthetics, was stomping my sign like she was a football player fighting for national pride. I rewatched the video, over and over, half amused, half in disbelief. She even muttered something. I couldn't make it out, but it was probably along the lines of "this ugly thing doesn't belong here." I sat there, phone still in hand, trying to process it. Linda didn't stop there. The next night she came back, this time not kicking, but shoving the sign I'd rebuilt that morning. It fell, she dusted her hands off, and marched back home like nothing happened. I watched the footage, feeling a mix of annoyance and weird satisfaction. Annoyed because my heartfelt sign kept getting trashed, but satisfied because I'd caught her. Linda Voss, the secret enemy of Harper's Hideaway, was exposed. I told my friend Jake Russo about it over the phone the next morning. Jake's a sculptor in town, always full of wild ideas, and the only guy I'd trust with this drama. "You're kidding me, Ethan," Jake cackled through the line. "A lady in a floral robe kicking your sign at midnight. I thought that only happened in bad comedies." I said, I couldn't believe it either, but I've got video proof. "She hates my sign so much she can't sleep." Jake stopped laughing, then asked, "So what are you gonna do? Call the cops?" I thought about it. A normal person might call the police, show the video, let them handle Linda, but not me. I wanted to see how far this madness would go, so I didn't say a word to Linda. I rebuilt the sign the next morning, acting like nothing happened, and waited. I knew she'd be back. Her obsession with my sign wasn't going away overnight. And sure enough, the next night, there she was on camera again, this time with a little screwdriver, trying to pry the plank off the stake. She fumbled, failed, and stormed off with a scowl I could see even in the dim flashlight glow. I sat on the couch, watching the screen, thinking, "You want a war with my sign, Linda? Fine, I'll show you how I play." That's when I knew I was in an unspoken war with Linda Voss. She wasn't just vandalizing my sign, she was challenging my peace in Willow Creek. But I wasn't in a rush. I had video, I had proof, and I had time. She didn't stop, and I was sick of rebuilding the sign every morning, just for it to get wrecked at night. I could have called the cops, handed over the video, and ended it. But I'm not the type to settle things the normal way. If Linda wanted to make my sign her personal battlefield, I'd give her a fight to remember, and I'd win my way. I spilled the whole story to Jake Russo, my friend, one afternoon over beers on my porch. Jake's a sculptor who's made weird statues for Willow Creek's fairs, so I knew he'd have something fun to suggest. "She kicked your sign like a football, then brought a screwdriver too." Jake laughed, shaking his head. "Ethan, you're living in a comedy and don't even know it." I shrugged, saying, "Yeah, but I'm tired. If she wants to break it, I'll give her something she can't break." Jake raised an eyebrow, then roared, "Great idea, make something epic, let her hurt her own foot." I started thinking seriously. Linda wasn't just breaking my sign, she was testing my patience, and I wasn't about to lose to a floral-robed midnight vandal. I rebuilt the sign one more time, like a final bait, then sat down with my laptop to research. I considered everything: a stainless steel sign, a solid concrete block, even a mild electric zap to scare her off. But then I remembered, I didn't want to end up in jail over it. I needed something durable, legal, and enough to shut Linda up. After days of web surfing and random calls, I found the perfect solution: A granite monument. Sounds over the top. I know. Replacing a tiny wooden sign with a stone monument is nuts. But I was past caring about reason. I called a stoneworks near Mount Hood, a few hours from Willow Creek, and they said they could make a 2-meter-tall half-ton pillar, custom engraved. I thought, if Linda wants to kick something, let her kick this. See how her foot holds up. Jake nearly fell off his chair laughing when he heard the plan. You turning your front yard into Stonehenge, Ethan? He asked. I smirked. Nah, just something big enough to show her she's lost. I ordered it that day. A sleek black granite pillar etched with Harper's Haven, forever on the front. I wanted it to be more than a new sign, a statement. Linda, you're done, and I'm going all in. The stoneworks promised delivery in a week, and I started planning to set it in concrete, so solid not even Linda's screwdriver could budge it. I knew Linda wouldn't give up easily. She's the type who never gets that she's fighting a losing battle, and here she was the queen of stubbornness. But I also knew I had the upper hand. I had video. I had a plan, and soon I'd have a stone monument she couldn't dent, no matter how hard she tried. If she wanted a war with my sign, I'd give her one, and I'd win in a way Willow Creek would talk about for years. Sitting on my porch, looking at the last rickety wooden sign I'd put up, I smirked. Linda had no idea she'd messed with the wrong guy. A week from now the monument would arrive, and I couldn't wait to see her face when she met something she couldn't kick down. I got in touch with the stoneworks near Mount Hood, a few hours' drive from my place. Jake Russo, my friend, insisted on coming along, saying, Ethan, I can't miss seeing you turn your front yard into a personal memorial. We drove up there one early morning, the Oregon mountain roads cloaked in fog, and I'll admit, the vibe made it feel like I was on some grand mission. At the shop, I met an old stone carver named Hank, with a white beard like Santa and a gravelly voice from years of breathing rock dust. I told him I wanted a 2-meter-tall, half-ton granite pillar, engraved with Harper's Haven, forever. Hank raised an eyebrow, asking, what are you doing with this thing? Marking territory or warding off evil spirits? I laughed. Just warding off a crazy neighbor. He nodded, like that was totally normal in Oregon. The crafting process took a full week. I sent the sketch via email, and Hank called a few times to confirm details. From the thickness of the stone pillar to the font style, I wanted it simple yet commanding, the kind of thing Linda would look at, and know she had no chance of winning. Jake suggested, carve a broken foot on it, to mess with her. I shot that down. I wanted to win with dignity, not cheap jabs. Finally, Hank sent a photo of the finished pillar, sleek black, towering, with Harper's Haven, forever, etched deep into the front. Seeing it on my screen, my heart pounded. This wasn't just a sign anymore. It was an invincible statement. On delivery day, I rented a small truck to haul the monument back to Willow Creek. Jake helped me oversee the unloading, and I've got to say, when that stone pillar was set down on my front lawn, I felt like I'd just built a world wonder. But the hard part was still ahead, installing it so Linda couldn't touch it. I called a local contractor, a guy named Pete, who specialized in house foundations. Pete brought cement and a mixer, and we dug a deep hole right where the old wooden sign used to stand. I stood there, hands on hips, watching Pete pour concrete into the pit, anchoring the pillar in place. No one's pulling this out, Pete said, wiping sweat. I nodded, thinking, go ahead and try, Linda. While Pete worked, Linda drove by. I was out in the yard pretending to check the bushes so I could watch her. She stopped her car mid-road, slid her sunglasses down and stared at the monument taking shape. Her face was a mix of shock and fury. I swear I could hear her thinking, what is this lunatic doing? I acted like I didn't notice, turning my back, but inside I was grinning. She had no idea what she was up against. When Pete finished, I stood admiring my creation. The granite pillar loomed 2 meters tall, gleaming under the Oregon sun, the words Harper's Haven, forever, screaming that this was my turf. And no one, not even Linda in her floral robe, could touch it. It was beautiful. It was majestic. And most importantly, it was untouchable. I clapped Pete on the shoulder, handed him a beer, and said, thanks man. Now it's her move. Pete raised an eyebrow. Her who? I just smiled. You'll hear this story spread through Willow Creek soon enough. I knew Linda wouldn't sit still. She's the type who never accepts defeat. And this monument was a slap in her face. But that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted her to try, to hurt herself, to realize she'd picked the wrong fight. I'd seen enough videos of her kicking, shoving, and prying at my old sign. Now I had something new, and I couldn't wait to see what she'd do with it. After the granite Harper's Haven, forever monument stood tall in front of my house, I knew Linda Voss wouldn't let it slide. She'd seen it going up, her shocked and angry glare practically screaming she wouldn't go down easy. I didn't rush to confront her. I wanted her to charge in, hurt herself, and figure out she'd messed with the wrong guy. So I brewed some coffee, settled on the couch, opened the camera app and waited. I knew she'd come back. That night I didn't have to wait long. Around 2 a.m. my phone lit up as the camera detected motion. I tapped in, and sure enough, there was Linda still in that gaudy floral robe, flashlight in hand, face like she was about to commit a crime. She approached the monument, slow and cautious, like a predator sizing up oversized prey. I smirked, thinking, go for it, Linda. See what you can do to half a ton of granite. She stood there a moment, glancing around to make sure no one was watching, as if anyone in Willow Creek was bored enough to spy on her at midnight. Then she made her move. I watched like it was slow-motion cinema. Linda raised her foot, summoned all her might, and kicked the monument dead on. I swear it was poetic. Her slippered foot flew forward, smashed into the glossy black stone, and then, payback. A loud thwack crackled through the camera's mic, and Linda bounced back like she'd been shoved. She lost her balance, stumbled, and plopped onto the sidewalk, clutching her foot, flashlight rolling off to the side. I sat on the couch, coffee in hand, laughing so hard I nearly choked. There you go, Linda, I muttered. That's what you get for picking a fight with granite. She writhed there, in pain, muttering curses I bet would make Portland dockworkers blush. I rewatched the clip, zooming in for a better look, and man, it was funnier than I'd expected. Linda cradled her foot, glaring at the monument like it had betrayed her, then hobbled to her feet. She limped off, leaving the flashlight rolling on the grass, and I could see defeat written all over her face in the dim glow. I sipped my coffee, thinking, welcome to my world, Linda. I don't lose here. I'd seen it coming, but watching it play out was pure joy. I remembered all those nights she'd kicked my old wooden sign, acting like she was on some righteous crusade. This time, she wasn't the victor. The monument stood unscratched, unshaken, mocking her arrogance. Linda wanted to break it, but she didn't know I'd planned it all. From the concrete depth to the granite's toughness, she didn't just lose, she lost spectacularly, and I had the video to prove it. The next morning I went out pretending to water the lawn, sneaking a glance at Linda's place. She was on her porch, foot propped up, an ice pack on her ankle. I acted oblivious, but inside I was buzzing like I'd just watched the best episode of my life. She didn't look at me. Maybe shame, maybe rage, but I could feel the resentment radiating off her. I shrugged, thinking, you did this to yourself, Linda. Don't blame me. I knew it wouldn't end there. Linda's not the type to take a loss and slink away. She'd kicked my sign. How many times? Hurt herself trying to wreck the monument. And I'd bet she'd find another way to strike back. I wasn't too worried. I had cameras. I had proof. And most importantly, I had an unbeatable monument. Back inside I replayed the video again, chuckling. Linda falling. Linda swearing. Linda limping away. It was a victory symphony just for me. I took another sip of coffee, thinking, try again, Linda. I'm waiting. The next morning, I saw her on her porch, foot bandaged, ice pack on her ankle, glaring at me like I was her sworn enemy. I pretended to water the lawn, shrugged, and thought, you brought this on yourself, Linda. Don't look at me like that. But I didn't expect her to escalate this big. A few days later I was washing my car in the driveway, when a shiny black sedan parked in front of Linda's house. A guy in a suit stepped out, briefcase in hand. I knew right away he was a lawyer from the way he strutted like he owned Willow Creek. I frowned, wondering, what's she up to now? The answer came the next day, when a thick envelope was stuffed into my mailbox. Not mailed, but hand-delivered, like she wanted me to know immediately. I opened it, and holy crap, Linda was suing me. She accused me of intentionally erecting a dangerous structure that caused harm, specifically the granite monument, and demanded compensation for severe injury. I read it, laughed so hard I had to sit on the porch chair to keep from falling over. She'd kicked my sign, how many times, hurt herself trying to destroy the monument, and now she wanted me to pay for her sore foot. I shook my head, thinking, Linda, you're a masterpiece of absurdity. But I wasn't worried. I had videos, tons of them, from her wrecking my old signs to that fateful night she toppled over the monument. If she wanted to play the lawsuit game, I'd play along, and I'd win. Court day came faster than I expected. We went to the local Willow Creek courthouse, a small building with creaky wooden benches, and the faint smell of burnt coffee wafting from the staff room. Linda showed up, foot bandaged thicker than necessary, hobbling in on crutches like she'd survived a bomb blast. I nearly laughed, but kept a straight face since we were in court. She brought her lawyer, the suit guy I'd seen, looking like the type who yelled to cover weak arguments. I went solo. I didn't need a lawyer for this circus. The hearing started, and Linda's lawyer stood up, launching into a speech I bet he'd rehearsed in the mirror all week. My client, Mrs. Linda Voss, suffered severe harm due to the defendant's malicious actions. He bellowed, pointing at me. He erected an excessively sturdy structure, fully aware it could pose a danger, with no warnings of the risk. I sat there, arms crossed, smirking. This guy was painting me as a supervillain, who built monuments to hurt people. The judge, an old guy with thick glasses, looked at me and asked, "Mr. Harper, how do you respond to these allegations?" I stood up, calm as if I were telling a story at the bar. "Your Honor," I said, "my neighbor broke 3 of my wooden signs before this. I just wanted to make this one sturdier, so she couldn't kick it down anymore." The judge frowned. "Got any proof?" I smiled, pulled a USB from my pocket, and handed it to the clerk. "It's all here, videos of her wrecking my old signs, and the night she hurt herself kicking the monument." They plugged the USB into a projector, and the room watched Linda in her floral robe kicking my old sign like a football, then charging the monument and crashing down. Snickers broke out from a few people. The judge paused the video at the moment. Linda clutched her foot, face twisted in pain. Her lawyer stammered, trying to say something, but the judge had had enough. He looked at Linda, asked, "You kicked that monument yourself, didn't you?" Linda flushed, mumbling, "I didn't know it was that hard." The judge sighed. Case closed. Dismissed. I walked out of the courthouse, hands in pockets, feeling like I'd just won a football game. Linda lost, and for the first time, she had to admit it in front of everyone. But I knew she wouldn't stop. She hobbled out, glaring at me with pure hatred, and I shrugged, thinking, "Go ahead, Linda, I'm ready for your next move." A few days after the hearing, I was sipping coffee on my porch when I saw Linda going house to house, a stack of papers and a pen in hand, knocking on doors. I frowned, wondering, what's she up to now? Mabel, the drama-loving old lady next door, strolled by and whispered, "She's collecting signatures to force you to take down that monument. Ethan says it's a public hazard." I nearly spat out my coffee. Public hazard. Linda kicked it herself, hurt her own foot, lost in court, and now she's back with that lame excuse. I shook my head, laughing hard. She never gives up, does she? I decided to watch Linda's antics through the camera app, not out of worry, but for entertainment. She knocked on Ted's door, the Willow Creek HOA president, and launched into her usual spiel. I couldn't hear it, but from her wild gestures and sour face, I figured she was spinning her victim tale. "That monument hurt me. We've got to get rid of it." Ted stood there, arms crossed, nodding politely, but clearly uninterested. Linda shoved the paper at him, but Ted shook his head, said something short, and shut the door. I smirked, thinking, 1 point for me, Linda. But Linda kept going. She hit Mabel's house, then a few other retirees in the neighborhood. Mabel told me later that Linda claimed the monument threatened child safety. A reason so ridiculous, I nearly fell off my chair. Willow Creek's full of old folks and childless couples. The closest thing to a kid is Ted's ancient dog Max, who sleeps on the porch all day. Mabel said, I told her straight, "Linda, stop making stuff up. No one here cares about Ethan's monument, but you." Linda flushed, stormed off, but still knocked on a few more doors. I started finding this more amusing than concerning. Linda wasn't just stubborn, she was impressively absurd. She posted in the neighborhood Facebook group a long rant about how my monument lowered property values and ruined Willow Creek's aesthetics. I read it, laughing so hard, my sides hurt. She called it a soulless rock and a lurking danger. A few people commented in agreement, like, "Yeah, it's kinda weird," but most just mocked her. One wrote, "Linda, you kicked it yourself. Don't blame Ethan." I sipped my coffee, thinking, you're digging your own grave, Linda. I didn't do anything to stop her. I wanted to see how far she'd embarrass herself. And as I expected, Linda wasn't winning anyone over. After years of griping about everything, from fallen leaves to house paint, she'd worn out the neighborhood's patience. Mabel told me, she once fined me for leaving my trash can out an extra hour. No one's backing her up, Ethan. I nodded, grinning. I know, she doesn't realize she's fighting the whole neighborhood now. Linda thought she could turn the tide with a few papers and a Facebook post, but she was dead wrong. I sat on my porch gazing at the towering monument, feeling like it wasn't just my victory anymore. It was about to become a symbol of Willow Creek standing up to Linda's nonsense. After losing the lawsuit and getting mocked by the whole neighborhood on the Facebook group, you'd think she'd retreat and salvage what little dignity she had left. But no, Linda was the type to slam her head into a wall again, just to prove she was right. And this time she dug herself into a hole that all of Willow Creek had prepped for her. I heard the gossip from Mabel a few days after Linda started her door-knocking campaign. The old lady pulled me onto her porch, tea in hand, eyes gleaming like she'd just witnessed the year's best drama. "Ethan, you know what Linda's up to?" she asked. I shrugged. "Still trying to get signatures to ditch my monument, right?" Mabel burst out laughing. "Yeah, but no one's signing. She knocked on my door, said the monument's a danger to kids." I told her straight, "Linda, the closest kid around here is Ted's dog Max, and he doesn't even bother getting off the porch." I laughed so hard my stomach hurt, picturing Linda blushing in front of Mabel, but it didn't stop there. Linda wasn't just rejected, she got hit back. Mabel went on. "After I shooed her off, I thought, time to end this circus, so I wrote a counter-petition to kick Linda out of Willow Creek for her constant harassment." I blinked. "You're kidding me." Mabel winked. "Just wait and see." I went door to door, and people signed faster than a house fire. I sat there, coffee in hand, unable to believe what was happening. Linda wanted the neighborhood to turn on me, but now she was the one they were turning against. I decided to check if Mabel was exaggerating. I took a walk around Willow Creek, pretending to admire the bushes while eavesdropping. Ted, the HOA president, stood in his yard, holding Mabel's petition, nodding with another neighbor. "Linda's gone too far," I heard Ted say. "She once fined me for leaving my bike out more than 2 hours. Now she wants Ethan's monument gone." "No way." I smirked, thinking, "Linda, you did this to yourself." I saw Mabel hit up another house, her stack of papers growing thicker by the minute, and I knew Linda was done for. Linda didn't realize her time was up long ago. After years of tormenting neighbors with petty rules, from fining fallen leaves to griping about birds chirping too loud, she'd worn everyone out. I heard another neighbor say, "She knocked on my door, shoved her paper at me, and I slammed it shut. Then I ran over to sign Mabel's." Another guy laughed. I told her, "Linda, for God's sake, shut up and live." I stood there, hands in pockets, feeling like the whole neighborhood was turning my monument into a rallying cry against Linda. In just 3 days, Mabel's petition had more than enough signatures. Not just enough, but way beyond what was needed to bring it to the HOA. Linda still tried knocking on a few more doors, but this time she wasn't welcome. One guy even took her paper, tore it up in her face, and ran over to give Mabel a fresh signature. I heard that and laughed until my sides ached. Linda wanted to make me public enemy number 1, but she didn't see she'd become the one Willow Creek despised. I stood in front of my house staring at the monument, feeling like it wasn't just mine anymore. It was the neighborhood's triumph. Linda had lost, and this time she couldn't blame anyone but herself. I knew it wasn't over. She'd have to face the HOA, and I couldn't wait to see how this play ended. Linda had lost the lawsuit, lost to my Harper's Haven, forever monument, and now she'd lost the community. But I still didn't believe she'd give up easily. I waited, sipping coffee on my porch, gazing at the monument standing tall like a trophy, wondering if Linda would dare try anything else. Turns out, she didn't have the chance. That weekend I got an email from the HOA, an emergency meeting notice with one agenda, addressing Linda Voss's behavior. I smirked, thinking, here it comes. The meeting night. The community room was packed, rare for Willow Creek, where HOA meetings usually drew a handful of bored folks. People whispered, glancing at Linda as she walked in, still carrying that haughty air though her eyes flickered with panic. I sat in the back, arms crossed, waiting for the grand finale. Ted, the HOA president, stood up, cleared his throat, and read aloud. The HOA has received multiple formal complaints about Mrs. Linda Voss's behavior. With a resident petition, we're putting her expulsion to a vote. Linda shot up, protesting, "This is a conspiracy. It's all because of Ethan Harper's monument." But no one cared. They'd been fed up with her for ages, from leaf fining sprees to that nonsense lawsuit against me. Ted raised a hand for silence, and the vote began. The result? Unanimous. 100%. Linda went pale, mouth agape, but no one clapped to comfort her. I had to fight, not to laugh out loud. She got 30 days to sell her house and leave. I thought Linda might cling on, stir up more drama, but she had no options left. The whole neighborhood had turned on her, and she knew she couldn't fight everyone. The days after were glorious. I stood in my yard each morning, pretending to water the lawn, watching Linda pack with a scowl. I'd wave at her every time, flashing my brightest smile, and she'd glare back like she wanted to drill through me. "Morning, Linda," I'd call, knowing she hated it. She never replied, just turned away, but I didn't care. I was savoring every second. Then the for sale sign popped up in front of her house. I sipped my coffee, admiring it from my porch, feeling like I'd won a long war. One fine day I saw a moving truck parked out front, and Linda was gone. No goodbye, no final tantrum. She was really out, leaving Willow Creek, more peaceful than ever. I stood by the monument, running my hand over its glossy granite, thinking, you lost, Linda, and I won. But the best part was still coming. After Linda left, the neighborhood decided to celebrate. Mabel suggested a BBQ right in front of my house, with the monument as the centerpiece. It's not just yours anymore, Ethan, she told me. It's our freedom symbol. I laughed, agreeing instantly. That weekend, all of Willow Creek gathered in my yard. Ted brought grilled meats, Mabel made cookies, and others chipped in beer and chips. We blasted music, joked, and retold Linda stories like war tales. Remember the night she kicked the monument? Jake Russo asked, beer in hand. I wish I'd been there to see her flop. I grinned. I've got the video, wanna see? That night, standing among the crowd, I felt something bigger than a personal win. The monument didn't just protect my Harper's hideaway, it united the neighborhood, turning quiet neighbors into friends. Linda wanted to destroy it, but in the end, she brought us closer. I raised my beer, shouting, thanks Linda, for giving us a reason to party. Everyone roared with laughter, clapped, and I winked at the monument. It still stood there, invincible, a reminder, don't mess with what's mine, or you know what happens. The story Linda kept ruining my sign, so I replaced it with a giant stone monument. Reflects a very real slice of life in the US today. The tension in small communities where strong personalities like Linda Voss often clash with the individual freedom Ethan Harper embodies. In modern America, suburbs like Willow Creek, Oregon, aren't strangers to dramas like this, from HOA rule spats to neighbor feuds over trivial things like signs or monuments. Linda, with her fixation on neighborhood aesthetics and attempts to impose her will, mirrors some Americans today, who wield free speech or complaints to pressure others, sometimes to absurd lengths. Meanwhile, Ethan, with his patient, creative approach swapping a sign for a granite monument, and reliance on community, showcases the independence and unity at the core of American culture. The takeaway from this tale isn't just don't mess with the patient guy, it's how to handle conflict in real-life America today. When Linda trashed his sign, Ethan didn't rush to react. He set up a camera for evidence, a smart move in a tech-driven age where Ring or Nest videos often settle neighbor disputes. Upgrading to a granite monument showed resilience and ingenuity, like how Americans often find unique ways to protect their rights. And when the neighborhood turned on Linda, and celebrated with Ethan at a BBQ, you see the power of community, a value still alive in the US, from block meetings to unity events like the 4th of July. In today's America, when facing stubborn Lindas, gather evidence patiently, defend your rights creatively, and lean on your community when it counts. Don't let petty conflicts spiral into personal wars. Like Ethan, turn them into chances to solidify your stance and bring people together. Ethan's monument wasn't just a win over Linda, it became a symbol of grit and neighborly bonds, a lesson worth learning for anyone in the diverse, sometimes drama-filled society of modern America. If you enjoyed the story of how I turned Linda into a laughingstock with my unbeatable monument, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next wild neighborhood drama. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video, where I'll spill if anyone in Willow Creek dares to mess with Harper's Haven again.